This year, Apple extended the SwiftUI framework with some new API, such as scenes and apps. This was a big expansion to SwiftUI, and that's why many developers call it SwiftUI 2.0. One of the most important features is that we can now build an entire app with just SwiftUI. In this class, we are going to cover the basics of this new API and explain how views, scenes, and apps work together. By the end of this lecture, users will be able to exit the onboarding process by tapping on the Start button and enter the next screen in the Fructus application. App file. Alright, without further ado, let's launch Xcode and open the Fructus app Swift file as I show you. Everything you see here is brand new in SwiftUI 2.0. Let's start with this @main attribute at the top of this code, shall we? The @main attribute is a new feature in Swift 5.3 programming language that allows a type to serve as an entry point of the execution of the program. Normally, a Swift program would require a main.swift file to execute. Now, with this @main attribute, we can delegate that responsibility and our program automatically performs all the necessary setup on launch to get our app to appear on the screen. Noteworthy changes. What we can see in this new app Swift file is a complete declaration for a basic app in SwiftUI 2.0 using only a handful of lines of code. Isn't that beautiful? Short and concise. Thank you, Apple's engineers. Now let's go through the main parts of this, shall we? As you can see, our Fructus application struct is conforming to the new App Protocol API. And here is another new feature in SwiftUI. As you may notice, this app declaration looks similar to a common view declaration in SwiftUI. For example, both views and apps can declare data dependencies. An app, however, is built using scenes, and so its body property returns a scene instead of a view. And finally, we find a new window group scene inside this body as well. Let's demystify these new changes a little bit further. SwiftUI App Life Cycle. To get familiar with how apps, scenes, and views work together, let's talk about their roles inside the new SwiftUI App Life Cycle. Let's start with the smallest element of them, shall we? Views. Views are important because each view defines a piece of UI in the application. When we look at an app, everything we see is a view. Individual images or pieces of text are views too. The horizontal or vertical scrolling containers holding them are also views. To put it simple, views serve as the basic building blocks rendering everything we see on the screen, and they can be composed together to form more complex user interfaces. Scenes. Views form the content of scenes, allowing them to be independently displayed by the platform. Those scenes can also be composed together to form more complex scenes. Some platforms, like iPadOS, can show multiple windows side by side. Next, macOS provides another great example of how scene content can appear in different ways, for example, in multiple windows, tabbed windows, sidebars, and so on. Other platforms, such as iOS, watchOS, and tvOS, prefer to show only a single full-screen window for each app. Our onboarding view is contained within a scene called Window Group. The window group scene manages the window that our onboarding will render into. It can also create additional windows within the same window. This is where we will develop the logic that will control which views should be rendered, the initial onboarding view or the content view. To wrap up this short introductory, this window group scene manages our main user interface in the new SwiftUI app life cycle. App storage. Alright, back to the app development. Every onboarding screen must have at least one exit way that navigates the user to a different screen. To make this work properly, we need to store its state value using a permanent storage on the device. For this functionality, we can use one of the new SwiftUI's property wrappers called App Storage. So, what is the App Storage property wrapper? First, the App Storage is SwiftUI's new dedicated property wrapper for reading values from user defaults. Second, this property wrapper automatically invalidates the app's body property on a value change and refresh its UI immediately. This app storage uses the user defaults data storage, which is ideal for storing small pieces of information about the app, such as different kinds of settings, utilities, etc. In this case, we are going to use this app storage to store and manage the actual state of the onboarding screen. It's not complicated at all. Either the onboarding screen is active or isn't. It's a simple true or false Boolean value. Having said that, let's create a new property that will store this value using the app storage, shall we? First, enter the following code inside the abstract. @AppStorage is onboarding var is onboarding bool equals true. As you can notice, we are using the app storage property wrapper for creating our new isOnboarding property that is initialized with the default true value. Basically, we set the onboarding screen to be visible for the very first time when the user launches the application. In the app storage property wrapper, we declare a new isOnboarding key to store this Boolean value. Having said that, each time when we want to modify this property, then we must use this key to refer to its value in the user defaults system storage. The real benefit of this new app storage is that it not only reads and writes data into the user defaults, but it always watches each value change of the key, and when a value change is happening, then it updates the UI immediately. It's a quite convenient tool for us. Conditional statement. Okie dokie, we set the state of the onboarding to true. Now it's time to create a new conditional statement to make the onboarding functionality to work. Enter the following if-else statement inside the new window group as I show you. If is onboarding view, else content view, and that's it. If the value of the isOnboarding property is true, then the window group scene renders the onboarding view for us. If its value is false, then the content view is rendered on the screen. So far, so good. The logic is already done for this onboarding feature. There is only one thing that is still missing. We need to make sure that each time when the users tap on the Start button, then they exit the onboarding view and enter a new screen. Start button. We can do that by entering only 2 lines of code. First, open the Start button view file and let's create a new property that will use the isOnboarding key to mutate its value in the app storage. Enter the following code. @AppStorage is onboarding var is onboarding bool ? This variable is optional boolean by default, but when the user taps on the button, then we set its value to false. Let's do that right now. Navigate to the button and replace the print function with this code. IsOnboarding equals false. When user taps on this button, then the state of the onboarding will be changed to false and the app storage will immediately revoke the UI of the scene and refresh it. It's simple as that. Testing. And there it goes. We can finish this lecture by testing our Fructus application in the simulator. Let's do it, shall we? Build and run the project. So far, so good. As you can notice, our first goal is accomplished. When the app is launched, the onboarding is the rendered view in the new initial scene of the SwiftUI app life cycle. Now tap one of the start buttons and let's see what's happening. Did you notice the quick change? Our scene view changed from the previously rendered onboarding view to the content view with the default welcome message. Awesome job, developer! You have just successfully developed the previously missing functionality of the onboarding for the Fructus app. With that, you have not only learned some basic information about the recently released SwiftUI app lifecycle, but you got familiar with how it works in general too. As you already know by now, the new app file contains the scenes and the scenes contain the views. Together, apps, scenes, and views form a unified hierarchy of the program. I hope that you are eager to continue the development of this iOS 13 application as I am. In the next class, we are going to create a well-designed list for the encyclopedia of fruits. It will be short and fun at the same time. Until then, happy coding and see you at the class.